My name is Gary Cooper. I am 52 years old. 3 days ago, I flew 1,000 miles to Miami, convinced my two grown sons were lying dead in a ditch somewhere, after neither one answered a single call for 72 straight hours. What I found instead was an engagement party neither of them bothered to tell us about, and 4 words from my oldest son that landed harder than anything I have survived in my entire life: stay on your own. Before I tell you what happened next, please hit like and subscribe. Drop your city and local time below. I love knowing where you are listening from. Now let me take you back to a hospital hallway 25 years ago, and the promise I made to 2 boys who would eventually decide that promise was a burden. My own father shipped out when I was 7 years old and never came home. Nobody taught me to throw a baseball. Nobody sat me down and told me I mattered. I built Anvil Biomed out of Shaker Heights, Ohio, with my hands and my back, calibrating the machines hospitals cannot survive without, so my own sons would never know that particular kind of empty. Standing in that hospital hallway the night Harry was born, and again 2 years later when Darren arrived, I made myself a promise. These boys will never go without. I kept it for 25 years, co-signing Harry's Brickell apartment lease, paying for cars, covering tuition without a second thought, every safety net a father could build quietly underneath 2 sons who never once had to ask twice. My wife, Kate, has known me 28 years, long enough to read a shift in my face before I even feel it myself. She used to say I loved those boys the way some men love a business, completely, without ever counting the cost. I never disagreed with her. I did not yet understand that a love built entirely on providing, with nothing asked in return, can quietly become invisible to the people receiving it. It started with a boring lease renewal letter requiring one quick verification from Harry before the deadline. I called him. Voicemail. I called again the next day. Voicemail. I called Darren to find his brother. Voicemail. From him too. Both sons, silent, the same day, for the first time in either of their lives. By day 3, I had called Harry 7 times and Darren 5, every single call dying in a voicemail box. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Florida troopers standing on my porch with their hats in their hands. Kate finally saw the fear on my face at 1 in the morning, and after 28 years of knowing which fights are worth having, packed a bag without argument. We flew to Miami the next morning, running every tragedy a father's mind can invent at 30,000 feet. Nothing prepared me for what was actually waiting behind that apartment door. Balloons taped to the frame, music playing, laughter that had nothing to do with tragedy at all. Harry opened the door with a drink in his hand and a grin that curdled the instant he saw us. "What are you guys doing here?" he said. "Not Dad." Not "is everything okay" when Kate gasped with relief that he was safe. He cut her off and told us flatly that they had not answered because they did not want to talk to us. "Stop calling us. Stay on your own." A young woman named Haley stepped up beside him, raised her hand to show us a ring, and informed us we were currently ruining their engagement party by showing up uninvited. 28 years of marriage, and I had never seen Kate look the way she looked in that hallway, like someone had reached into her chest with a bare hand, thinking of her own grandmother's antique ring, sitting polished in our safe back home for 20 years, waiting for a moment that was never going to include her. Darren appeared moments later, groaning at the sight of us like we were an inconvenience he thought he had already dealt with. When I explained calmly that the lease deadline was the reason for the call, both boys told me, unprompted, that they had seen my name on their phones for 3 straight days and purposefully chosen not to answer, just to see how long it would take me to finally get the hint and leave them alone. I did not yell. I never have been that kind of man, not having had a father to teach me how a moment like that should be handled. I took Kate's hand and walked to the elevator, while Harry and Haley muttered something behind us. I did not need to hear clearly to understand the tone of, "I wish this had gone differently. I wish my sons had grown into men who understood that every safety net beneath their feet had a name attached to it. Mine, built out of love rather than obligation." But wishes do not undo 25 years of a promise that quietly became something they resented instead of something they valued. The truth does. On the flight home, Kate stared out the window in complete silence, tears slipping down without a single sound, telling me somewhere over the causeway about the 20 years she had spent polishing a ring for a daughter-in-law she had just been told to leave a party for. I held her hand the rest of the way and made a decision somewhere over Georgia that I had not fully admitted to myself yet. The night we landed back in Cleveland, I sat alone at my kitchen table long after Kate had finally fallen asleep, going through every account, every lease, every card that carried my name and my signature attached to my sons' lives. At 11:50, I called my attorney to begin drafting formal letters withdrawing my guarantor status on Harry's lease and canceling the credit accounts both boys had relied on since college. Just after midnight, I signed the paperwork myself, effective immediately, removing my name from every financial safety net I had quietly built beneath both of them for over a decade. 12:03 in the morning, I am 52 years old. I am, for the first time in 25 years of fatherhood, done providing for people who ask me to stay on my own. Somewhere in Brickell, Harry and Darren were almost certainly still celebrating, confident their father would eventually call again, apologize, and quietly resume paying for the life they had built entirely on my signature. They had no idea the lease renewal deadline they never bothered to help me meet was about to become the least of their problems. Harry's property manager called him within the week once my guarantor withdrawal took effect, informing him the lease could not renew without a new qualifying guarantor or substantially higher income verification on his own. Darren discovered his credit card, the one he had used without a second thought for 8 years, declined at a restaurant in front of friends. Both boys called me that week for the first time in months. I let every call go to voicemail, the same silence they had given me for 3 days in May, returned exactly as it was given. When I finally answered Harry's fourth call, his voice had none of the confidence it carried in that hallway. He looked at me, even over the phone, the way he always had, expecting the safety net to still be there the moment he actually needed it. It was not. I had not been that father since the moment he told me to stay on my own. I made myself a promise in a hospital hallway 25 years ago that my sons would never know what it felt like to go without. I always thought that meant giving everything I had without condition. I understand now it meant something more complicated, that love without any boundary eventually stops being recognized as love at all. Harry lost the Brickell apartment within 2 months and moved into a smaller place he pays for entirely himself. Darren, last I heard, picked up a second job to cover what my card used to quietly absorb. As for me and Kate, we still have each other, 28 years steady, and a ring in the safe that will simply wait until someone earns the story behind it properly. I think about my own father every time I look at my sons now, and I think, I spent my whole life making sure they never felt the empty I felt as a boy, only to learn that some children need to feel exactly that emptiness once, before they understand what they actually had. If you have ever given everything to someone only to be told to stay on your own, I want to hear your story. Tell me in the comments. And if this one moved you, subscribe to Dad's Revenge Tales. There is more where this came from.